Welcome to the Springtown Chamber Chatter. Our goal is to bring you information from local small business owners and leaders to help you grow your business and stay up to date on current events. I'm your host, Dr. Robert Moss, along with Springtown Chamber Executive Director, Amy Walker. Today on the show, we have Mike Kelley, Superintendent for Springtown Independent School District. Mr. Kelley has a bachelor's degree from Baylor University and a master's from Charlton. He's in his 29th year serving as an educator, 22 years in Springtown ISD. He's taught multiple courses over his 10 years as a teacher. He served 2 years as a middle school principal, 6 years as the principal of Springtown High School, and he's currently in his 9th year as a superintendent. His wife is a hometown native, and their children also went through Springtown Independent Schools. His son Connor is currently a Aggie at Texas A&M, and his daughter Marissa is a junior at Springtown High School. Welcome to the show, Mr. Mike Kelley.
All right, hi, and welcome to another episode of the Chamber Chatter podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Robert Moss, along with Amy Walker, our Executive Director for the Springtown Chamber of Commerce. And today we have our special guest, Mike Kelley, who is our Superintendent for Springtown Independent School District. And he's going to share some information about what the school district did during this COVID-19 transition and maybe some possible changes that we'll see coming up in the next school year. So Mike, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Moss. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So obviously COVID-19 kind of threw all of us for a loop, especially you guys in the school system. So can you walk us through kind of that process? You guys were kind of coming out of spring break and this thing hit and you guys had to really hit the brakes and make some changes.
Well, you know, we actually, the last day before spring break, there was a rumor that there's some things were going to be changing. And I think actually a couple of our elementary teachers even told the students, take a lot of your stuff home just in case. I spent that Friday before spring break happened to be an in-service day. And I spent the morning going to campuses and talking to them a little bit about what might be coming, just in terms of generally the school year, and had the question, well, you think we leave, might we not even come back? I said, oh, we're going to come back, surely. Well, by lunch, I had to go back to all the campuses and said, hey, looks like we're not going to come back. Just got an announcement, so had to backtrack. But that day is kind of just
I believe that day was Friday the 13th.
In fact, it was. And Ms. Walker, it may have even been a full moon. I'd have to go back to look. But there was a black cat crossed the path as I was coming to work, probably. I don't know. But it was an interesting day. But from that day, every day since then, or every week since then, kind of been like that. It starts out one way and changes to another. We have had some rapidly changing situations. The governor has, I think, done the very best that he can to keep us posted on what's going on. But I'm certain that there are things knowledge and information that he has to work through with his staff, and maybe a few rumors get out. We're worrying what's going to happen, and he's telling us as soon as he can. I know that he is, but until he knows for certain what their approach is going to be, probably he's hesitant to share it. We've had initially meetings with the Commissioner of Education every day, Saturday and Sunday, to his credit. Every day of the week, Saturday and Sunday included, started out that the commissioner would have a webinar with the superintendents in the state, 3 o'clock. And then it moved to weekdays, and now it's 2 days a week. So I guess it's not changing quite as rapidly as it was, but we have had to totally reinvent ourselves. And it's been interesting. It's been challenging for every stakeholder. I know I talked to parents of our students in the community. It's not been easy for them. It's not been easy for our kids. It hasn't been easy for our teachers. But I do think that on a positive side, coming out of this, there are a lot of very positive things that we will take from it. Our teachers are going to have a lot more tools available to them in terms of instructional resources. They've gotten really good at some things as a group that maybe we had pockets of excellence, but they are working together and sharing ideas and sharing tools. It's been fun to watch that. Kids surely are going to come out of this more resilient and having to have been more flexible. Parents, I think, have a bit more appreciation maybe for what teachers have to go through. But I also know it's been fun to read, like on Facebook, parents talking about the quality time they've been able to spend with their kids. And life has not been such a rush where you're going to school first thing in the morning, you get out of school, you come home, you change clothes, get ready for practice, you go to practice, come home, do schoolwork, and then you try to brush your teeth and go to bed. It's the frantic pace that our society has had has slowed down a little bit. And I think that could be a good thing. Wouldn't wish this situation on anybody, but
yeah, it is a good thing. But thinking about the parents that are juggling going to work, coming home, doing schoolwork with their kids, I can't imagine how stressful that might be.
No, absolutely. And one of the, I won't put her on the spot, but a very intelligent, terrific work ethic, a person that I know has every outstanding quality they could have, is mother to 3 kids. She got a great job, and she absolutely is really struggling to balance all these things, and you can't. She's got 3 kids in school and balance your job. It's not anything that, it's no shortcoming of her own. It's just, it's a difficult circumstance.
Right.
I hope as a school district, we have dialed some things back and rolled the expectations in terms of what the help we need from home. I hope we've dialed that back some so that it is a manageable situation. That's the hope. I think we probably started it a little bit too aggressive with what we tried to send home. And the reality is right now, this year, we need to try to reinforce what we have already taught, enrich some of those things. But the new instruction needs to be pretty slow so that everybody has a pace they can manage. And next year, we'll see. Next year, we'll have to look a lot different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What are some of those changes that you may be looking at? And I know from some of the parents that I've talked to, one of the things is, we have bad internet, and so, digital courses versus paperwork, and now you're making copies and bringing copies back and all this sort of stuff. So have you guys kind of addressed that and, currently, and then looking forward to next year, what's going to happen there?
Well, okay. So very surprising to me when this started, we decided that we'd share the Chromebooks that we had at school and send those home with students. We knew a very high percentage of our students actually do have an internet connection. And a lot of those kids and parents checked those computers out, and then after a week or two returned them and said, we would rather bring home the paper packets, the digital resources. Either the connection's not great or the parents feel more comfortable helping kids in a modality that they're used to. Right? I didn't grow up using the computer when I was a school as a student, and so our parents, we started getting those returned. And I thought it'd be the opposite. I thought we would see more and more people wanting to go to the online piece. So as a district moving forward, I think that I talked to our technology director today. In fact, we're going to have to allocate some resources to purchase more Chromebooks. And now that I think our teachers are becoming more confident and capable of providing the digital instruction, I do think that maybe some parents will go back to that. But also, it's going to have to be, we also know that it's going to have to be a hybrid. We're going to have the more traditional resources that we can use. Textbook adoptions, whereas used to, when I was in school, we had the hardback books and you checked it out and you kept it for a year. And it was always fun to look at the kids that had it 10 and 12 years before you. You could open the binder and see that in there. This moving forward, most of the textbook adoptions, it's a paperback. It's a consumable. So it goes home with the student and it stays there. And the next year we get the replacement. It's not made out of the same kind of paper. It's a little cheaper to print. But that will become the norm. I think we'll have packets of work that go home and stay. And to solve the internet problem, one thought is that we use flash drives. There are kids who don't have good connectivity, and if we could move the flash drives back and forth, kid could have a Chromebook or a Chromebook. I guess wouldn't work because you need the OS needs a connection. But we could send laptops home and get video and have a lot of things move back and forth. So we may be investing quite a bit in flash drives. But it's not ever going to go away that we have the paper product. Also, we're going to have that, the traditional resources. Some kids and some parents are much more comfortable there.
Yeah, I know being 47, I'm kind of in that verge of there's a lot of stuff that comes out on digital, but I still like that that presence of a paperback or, something I can hold in my hand. One thing when you were talking reminded, my mom is a retired educator in San Antonio. And one of the reasons when she retired years ago was, everything was pushing online and grades were on the computers and all that sort of stuff. And she's kind of anti-technology. So I think of that, and maybe, do you have any educators in the system that are like my mom? They're not real sure how to use some of this technology, and have you had to work and kind of coach with them to give them the capability to move forward?
Absolutely. There are some who they're very much a fish out of water working with if having to rely solely on the digital resources. But there are others. It's been fun to see some teacher leaders emerge who are able to help their peers who maybe aren't quite as comfortable in this environment. But there are some who, especially if they're really project based, if there's somebody in their classroom, they have a lot of hands-on projects, this has not been as easy a move, but they are getting better at it and finding, the technology is much more intuitive now than it was even just a few years ago. So that would have helped somebody like your mother. But there's a lot of it that's menu driven, and there are so many tools available now that cater to some people who the digital environment's that's not their native language. And so things have gotten easier on that front, but really watching the teacher leaders emerge has been a lot of fun, very encouraging.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I do remember my mom saying she had a younger teacher that was coming in, and she would frequently check on her, and you need help with this. And I, like by the time the lady could do it, my mom wouldn't even have the thing open. So, I fully understand that part. Yeah. So obviously there's a lot of new capabilities for all the staff and all the students and the kiddos and stuff. I think the big thing is, what about sports? And are we going to have football, coming up?
Yeah, well, on the national level, I think California maybe has already come out and said that. I read this. I don't know that it be true. If maybe one of the two of you have seen it, but maybe state of California is not going to allow sports next fall, and they're talking about what the Pac-12 will do and what will the rest of the NCAA do, and maybe that's not factual. I just saw something come across my a text message from one of my friends. But in Texas and in the South, I think it'll be a tougher move to get away from those sports. The UIL has been in Texas. The University Interscholastic League has been very appropriately cautious. Let's say that appropriately cautious. They've rolled out some plans on what the summer conditioning programs could look like. They have not yet said that we can begin the summer conditioning. And in terms of what will happen in the fall, our hope is that we're going to be able that some semblance of normalcy is going to return. But if it's not safe, and if some people much brighter than I am tell us that we don't need to do that, then we won't. But it would be very much speculative right now to say that we won't be able to do that. We're gonna proceed as if it's going to happen. But we're also aware of the fact that there's some challenges that we may not be able to meet in terms of keeping students healthy and safe.
And any thing else that you've met with, say, with the school board or any statewide UIL, anything like that, moving forward as far as how you're doing ratios of teachers and parents in these gatherings? Because we still don't know, if we're going to be able to open up and how large the gatherings can be.
Well, in our immediate future is graduation, and that's something we've had to talk to our trustees about and keep them posted. And those guidelines have changed a little bit over the last 2 weeks, but we think that right now we have the blessing to move forward with graduation on the 29th of May. It'll be a very different graduation. We were scheduled to go on the 22nd. The governor said, everybody tap the brakes, nothing until June 1st. And then a few days later, he reversed course and said, okay, we'll give you back that weekend of the 29th, but it will look very different. We're going to limit the number of attendees. Each graduate will be able to invite 4 guests. We have a stadium that seats about 4,000 on the home side, and so we're going to let about 800 tickets come in. It'll keep us just under that 25% capacity, but remember we have 200 graduates, and then all the supporting, the logistical challenges of having a supporting staff there. So the immediate things that we've had to talk about with our trustees are graduation. Now, the long-term piece is we have talked about what might enrollment look like. I've seen some people project that enrollment would be down as much as 15% at the elementary levels. I saw last night on, I think, Channel 8 just had a poll. I don't know how many people participated in their survey or their poll, but it was north of 70% of the respondents said that they are not comfortable with their elementary children returning to school in the fall. Now, that's a poll conducted on May the 12th. That may be very different by the time we get into the fall. But what we're concerned about is how many kids might not return, and then balancing that with the fact that we see a lot of homes going up. And so if, say, 10% of your current students don't return, but you have growth of 2 or 3 or 4% or whatever, where's that going to wash out to? Obviously, there are funding issues we need to consider because our funding is largely driven by enrollment, and we don't want to overstaff. We don't have more teachers than we need. That's not effective or efficient use of our taxpayer dollars. But on the flip side, if we understaff, well, that's a tough explanation to share with a parent or a student that, I'm sorry, we don't have enough teachers for you. We could have, but we chose not to. So it's a balancing act, and one that a lot of districts are struggling with.
And so many other things to consider too, the busing kids to school and lunchtime. And I just, the list goes on and on.
When we talked about maybe reopening a few weeks ago, there was some discussion about what might happen if these numbers are whatever they are. And that is exactly as Ms. Walker said. Are we going to be able to find people willing to drive a bus and have 70 kids cooped up? And then, you know what it's like in August, those windows are up and we're running the air conditioner as best we can in those buses, but it's a closed environment. And we may struggle to find people willing to drive a bus. And what about food service personnel and janitors? Are we going to have enough janitors? Because the cleaning issues, we're going to need a lot more FTEs, full-time equivalents. We're going to need a lot more janitors than we've had in the past to keep the buildings sanitized and clean. So aside from, are the kids going to come, we also have to ask, are the adults going to come? And there are some who it's not in their best interest to come. And others, I think, who will do everything they can as much as they're allowed. So it's interesting. And fortunately, I'm in a business where the decisions, we need to plan for it right now, but there's going to be a lot that changes between now and August. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have the advantage of a little more time in the looking glass, I guess. But
I know in August we normally host our chamber luncheon with all the new teachers and everything. And in the past, it's been 40, if not upwards of close to 50, new staff members coming on. I imagine this year is probably going to look a little bit different based on your staffing needs and what you guys plan out.
Well, right now, knock on wood, we have had some retirees and we've needed to replace, but I don't know that there will be as much mobility this year. I think we'll probably hold a little more steady in terms of the numbers of hires, but I think we have some really terrific teachers that I hope will stick around. And in terms of staffing, there will be a couple of adds we have to make because our enrollment in some of our special programs has gone up. But I don't know that we'll add. What I anticipated we would add 2 months ago is not what I anticipate we add today. How's that?
Yeah, I fully understand that as well. Yeah, exactly. And so you had touched on, I guess the news poll that you saw, potentially people, gut feeling, like, do you think some people, like some parents are going to say, yeah, I'm going to homeschool them because I'm more fearful of the virus? Or you think there's going to be some parents that are like, oh my goodness, I got to send this kid back to school. Like, I can't do this.
There will be
I've
both.
heard some of that.
I've heard some of that too. And there are some kids who are very motivated and do well on their own, and maybe their parents weren't aware of that, and maybe they will have more comfort that staying at home is an option. There are other students maybe who parents had some assumptions or some thoughts and realized that they need a little more guidance and direction than they could offer. So I don't know where that will balance out, but I do think that there will be a fair amount of people who opt to at least stay home in the early going, and let's see how it goes. There's going to be a fear, understandably, of when we start school and all these kids come together who've been apart all summer, what's going to happen to the numbers? Is there going to be a spike in the spread of the virus? And if there's not, they'll have some comfort sending their kids in. But I bet there's going to be a little bit of wait time before folks start in August. And then I'll go ahead and share that the state TEA late last week and again this week, they're really pushing the idea of an earlier start date. They're really wanting to push back into August or maybe even late July, the start date for public schools. And it wasn't that long ago. We started on September 1st. Now they're pushing it back even further. Locally, we're a district of innovation, and we talked to our board a couple of years ago about pushing back our own start date, and we have. We've gone from the 4th Monday in August to the 3rd, but had a discussion this morning with our principals and talked to some of our site-based committees about the idea of possibly pushing back our start date even earlier, a week earlier maybe, and what would the pros and cons of that date. The state is proposing that we push it back and start earlier and then have more breaks in between and be ready for maybe a surge in numbers where we could take a break and not try to go to necessarily digital instruction or at-home learning, but just take a break for a week or 2 weeks and then come back to whatever is normal. My hesitation with that is when we come back from Christmas, for example, a 2-week break, it's hard to get those kids reacclimated. And if we have a bunch of 2-week breaks built into the school year, we're going to spend 3 or 4 or 5 days getting them back in the groove, and that's lost instructional time. So I'm a little bit hesitant to build in longer breaks by starting earlier. I would much rather that we start at what we think is a normal time here in Texas and risk that maybe we go longer because we have some temporary closures. The downside of that is the state's standardized testing schedule is in the spring and it's set pretty firmly. And so if we start at a normal time and miss some time, our kids aren't going to be ready for those tests. And we'll get them caught up by June, but that's not when the test is administered. So I'm hoping the governor or the commissioner step in and maybe adjust the testing schedule, maybe back that up rather than encourage that we start kids earlier. That's going to present some challenges. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's a wealth of information right there, especially for local business owners that, probably have kids and they've had to juggle, taking time off, or now that their kids are off, what are they doing with their business? And if their business was essential and was able to stay open, I know that, there's been a lot of that talk as well. Ms. Walker, any other questions for Mr. Kelley before we wrap it up?
Can't think of anything.
Well, great. Well, Mr. Kelley, we certainly appreciate having you on the show today. Any closing remarks for parents, teachers, students as they go into this long extended, I guess, spring break into summer break here?
So it is a long one. Well, 2 things. One, I want to thank everybody involved, parents, teachers, and students, for the patience they've shown, because we've had to be incredibly flexible and make adjustments on the fly. And there just been so many potentially negative things that could be said and done that have not. People have been very patient and very encouraging to each other, and I really appreciate that. And then secondly, just congratulations to the class of 2020. They're about to finally get to wrap some things up, and they've missed a lot. And it's a great group of kids that we have here at Springtown. This senior class is very special and done some great things. Look forward to having an opportunity to honor them on the 29th of May. We're going to delay graduate. We'll start at 8:30, let the sun dip a little further down. We've backed things up a week, let it cool off a tiny bit, but congratulations to that group. They're very special.
Yeah, exactly. Congratulations to that class. Thinking back, high school days and the things you get to do those last couple of weeks, and not only graduation, but there's usually some type of senior trip or really kind of knock off in school or whatever, and they've been able to knock off at the house, I guess. But
they have set a record for senior skip day. I saw that t-shirt the other day.
There you go. Something positive out of that whole
world record. Yeah.
Well, Well, great. Well, once again, we appreciate you coming on and taking time out of your busy day. And maybe we'll have you back in a couple of weeks as things start to unfold, and we'll keep our citizens up to date on what's happening here at the Springtown ISD.
Terrific.
Great.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I was Walker.
Well, that concludes another episode of Springtown Chamber Chatter. I hope you found the information useful. If you have any questions, please contact the Chamber at 817-220-7828 by email info@springtownchamber.org or visit us on the web at www.springtownchamber.org. Thank you.